Okay, welcome to this session titled Learning on Their Own Terms, The Rise of Learner-Centered Models. Our first panelist is Coy Marie Morefield of Education Reimagined. And our second panelist is Tyler Thigpen. He's CEO of the Forest School. And then we have Lizette Valles, who is the founder of Ellemercito Learning. And also with me is Caroline Allen, Chief Program Officer at the Center for Education Reform. So we're going to go in order on the program. So I think, Coy, you are first up.
Sounds good. Okay. Would you mind terribly if I stand? Will that ruin anything?
I think that would be great.
Okay,
yeah.
Fantastic. Okay, and I just want to make sure I know
There's one right there.
how to work this. Okay, so I don't. How can I go back? Okay, got it. Okay.
Bring it.
Thank you. I'm going to stand because that's just more comfortable for me. I'm Coy Marie, and I am the founder of the Lab School of Memphis. The photo that you see, I think is probably my favorite photo because it captures the joy and the light that is, pun intended, that is really the culture of the lab school. And I count the experience with the lab school among a huge blessing because I'm actually quite a reluctant founder. After a career in public school turnarounds and a few stints in the corporate world, building a school was not on my list, not even close. It wasn't on the bottom, it just wasn't there at all. So I refer to myself as a bit of a reluctant founder. So what happened? The painful reality, oh, I left my clicker, sorry. The painful reality is that what I was seeing within the system was enough to make me run and never turn back. What I was seeing is that what we were looking for from young people, the programming that was happening, it was not in service of young people. And I didn't want to participate in that. So I headed out with no plans to return. And then I became a mom of twins. Twice. Yes. So suddenly, education was my whole life because I had these small people for whom I was responsible, 4 of them in 2 years. So I don't know, I don't think I ever understood, even as an educator, how true it is that every child is unique and different until I gave birth to 2 at the same time, with the same parents, in the same place, raised the same way, and they're totally different. I mean, it was mind-blowing. On a level, it feels kind of like, well, duh, but I don't know if you've ever tried to like nurse 2 infants at the same time, like, they're totally different. Yes, thank you. And each one of them really does require a custom approach. And that didn't end in infancy. That remained true and remains true even into school. Trotter wouldn't sit on the circle, on the rug. Knox wouldn't talk to anyone. Same classroom. And it turns out that Trotter was actually just bored, and Knox required some time to warm up. So, contrary to what the teacher thought, he didn't need a speech therapist. What he needed was trust and a relationship. Thank you. I appreciate that. So I founded the Lab School of Memphis with a vision of learning that really honored children as whole human beings and as meaningful contributors. So I wanted to respect that innate desire to create and question, no, because I said so, over here. And we grew from 6 learners, like in this photo, to a fully accredited pre-K through 8th innovation lab, whose model became known for doing just that, those things. The way in which we do those things is 3-pronged. I'm going the wrong way. Oh, the little palm tree, got it. So we do that with a 3-pronged approach, and that is personalized, experience-based, and project-based. That is the framework through which we operate. Personalized is simply learning that honors the child's interests and honors their pace. We'll go as slow or as quickly as you like. No, I'm hit. You know, this is gonna impact my reputation, I feel like, you know? It's like, so this woman has a school and they're performing how? I promise, there was no prep. He's just telling me from over there, but that's okay. I'm a fast learner because I'm an entrepreneur and a founder. Okay.
Amen. There you go.
So, there is also project-based. I mentioned experience-based. Our farm school program and the proprietary farm school curriculum that we created is what we are known for. Parents come and visit and say, tell us about the farm. Because once a week, our babies are on a bus. They're headed out to a farm where they are doing everything, helping with the pigs and helping garden, and it becomes their home away from home. So that is the experience-based. And then the project-based learning, which allows them to pursue meaningful work within their communities. For example, last year, one of our projects was a community yard sale. So my kindergartners, my 2, remember twins, my 2 kindergartners spent a couple of months learning all about inventory and pricing of secondhand items, even including a visit to Goodwill. My 2nd graders last year spent a couple of those same months learning about customer service and were coached by a Chick-fil-A manager on how to deliver prime customer service in preparation for this yard sale. So when I tell you we're about getting really into the depths of it and these projects meaning something and resonating, I promise, it's really happening. And it's exciting for the learners and for us. The sort of 3-pronged approach that I mentioned, it reflects these beliefs that I always had about learning and about what young people were capable of and the voice and the community. And early on in our journey as a school, Education Reimagined came along and put language to these very intuitive things that I had already set in place. The things that my heart, that my gut as an educator and as a mom told me were the right things are the things that Education Reimagined came along and put words to. And we were able to align in that way. And I consider that a gift and part of what allowed us, honestly, to continue to move forward and grow to 75 last year and to continue to be an example, a lab for other founders, for other schools, and even schools that were not in the innovative space. Delay. Here we go. So before I sit down, I will share a little bit about where we are now. Someone mentioned it's the middle of the day and it's a Thursday and we're founders and stepping away. I am no longer the CEO of the Lab School of Memphis. The Lab School earlier this year, well, spring, summerish, was acquired by an individual who founded 6 charter schools as well as a private school in our community. He and I have known each other for some time and had some conversations and we came to an agreement in this spring. And let me be clear, I consider that a win for every learner-centered environment in this country. Every single one of them. My microschool friends, my microschool family, that's a celebration and a win for all of us. Here's why I say that. Pure microschools, no matter how innovative, have natural growth limits. They just do. And sometimes that means after 5 years, you go do something else, or sometimes it means you close down with tears. But by partnering with other schools or districts, you're accessing mechanisms to scale that learner-centered foundation, those learner-centered principles that would otherwise remain boutique. So the education establishment has spent years dismissing microschooling and sort of pushing it to the fringes. But now, as we heard in the last panel, demographic pressures and parent demands and competition are all forcing them to seek out what works. So we, as in microschoolers, have moved from being ignored to being acquired. Imagine that. So the establishment that once dismissed learner-centered approaches now recognizes the value enough to actually invest there, to put something behind it. So we've moved from being pushed to the fringes to being courted as essential partners. And isn't that what this has been about all along? It certainly has for me. Instead of serving 50 to 150 students that have agency and competency-based learning, we now have the potential at the Lab School of Memphis to impact thousands of learners and to develop learner-centered practitioners into the hundreds. They have 200 plus employees that are attached to his other organizations. I really believe that learner-centered education is the future. I also really believe that my transition in the past couple of months is one of the ways we get there, one of them. I'm open to so many more, but I think this is one way. And I know I was introduced as Education Reimagined. So in my role, my new role with Education Reimagined, I get to do more of that, of this. I get to seek out and strengthen schools and systems and partners nationwide that are ready to work together as a connected network where everyone in the community comes in, sleeves rolled up, and contributes assets and expertise to create holistic learning experiences for the young people that are there. That's what I get to do. That's what's next. And in terms of learner-centered models and their rise, I will say we meaning me and the Lab School, are still on the way up.
I think this is you, actually. Yeah. Unless, check. Can I grab that?
This one?
No, the
Let me show you
Teach
very
me, the green.
clearly. This one?
this one advances it.
This is a special Harvard clicker.
Right.
Let's see. There we go. Two things that stuck out to me, Coy, from ignored to acquired. That was powerful. And then the fact that you had 4 children in 2 years. My goodness. Let's go. My name's Tyler. I want to share my favorite email from a 12-year-old. Dear Tyler, I'm sending this email because I'd like to talk to you about a situation that I've been running into with the math platform that I use. Unfortunately, over the past couple of months, I've realized that I haven't been learning as much math as I should be. I feel like I'm not learning anything. And that these past couple months, I've just been wasting my time learning on a platform that I don't understand. Anyway, I think I might have a solution to this problem. And I assume she meant goal there. Her name's Brooke. My goal is to put together a system that works for my learning type. I have some ideas and a proposal that I would like to get your thoughts. Do you have time in the next couple days to meet with me to discuss this more? The cheering is exactly what my team and I did when we got this email. I read it to them in a team meeting, and I met with a team member of mine and Brooke on our front steps of our Microschool at the time. This was back in 2019. And she wanted our blessing, but to be honest with you, I think she would have done it even had she not gotten our blessing, But we were celebrating that she was shouldering the responsibility for her learning, in a way that was next level, which was pretty cool. My favorite of late quote from an educator. So we have a founder in residence program at our Microschool south of Atlanta. And one of our founders in residence is Dr. Chrissy Keck, who is about to launch a charter school in Gwinnett County, northeast Atlanta. And she wrote a post on LinkedIn a couple weeks ago, and in all caps, which is, it's bold to write in all caps. She said, "Rewired. In my first few days as founder in residence at Forest, I walked through the doors and stopped in my tracks. An upper elementary learner stood there with a power drill in hand, repairing a broken couch. No teacher instructing, no checklist in sight, just a learner who saw a problem and confidently took it on. As a traditionally trained teacher, that moment shook me in the best way. For years, I've taught in schools where adults felt the weight of directing every minute. But here, learners are trusted to be self-directed. There are no desks lined neatly in rows. Instead, there are Socratic conversations, students scattered in different spaces working on meaningful challenges, and guides who step back so that learners can step forward. It's not chaos, it's agency. It's responsibility, it's ownership, and it's deep learning. Everywhere I turn, I see what happens when young people are given the space to direct their own journey. This is what fuels my passion for the Meliora School, a mastery-based, student-centered community where learners are guided, not controlled, where self-direction is nurtured, and where the goal isn't compliance, but empowerment." Our team was really struck, as you can imagine, by that comment as well. My colleagues and I at our organization, so we run a Microschool that's diverse by design, pre-K through grade 12, south of Atlanta. It's called the Forest School and Acton Academy. And our mission is that each person who enters our doors will find a calling that will change the world. We also run an online school that's global, small though, 55 learners from many different continents. And then we have the Institute for Self-Directed Learning, where we partner with a number of folks who are trying to build learner-centered models in public and private spaces. And one of the studies that we did through our institute was to sort of understand broadly, what does the pathway of a self-directed learner, and obviously what we're talking about, the title of our talk is learner-centered, and there's different lingo in the education, sector that's used to describe what we all want for student agency, self-determination, self-directed learning, learner-centered, learner-led, learner-driven. These are all, there's a big Venn diagram, I think, for all this. But the peer-reviewed study that Dr. Caleb Collier, who leads our institute, published, identified 4 phases. The first being, this is when learners are getting their basic needs met, when they feel safe, they feel like they can belong, they have, plenty to eat, they have plenty of rest, trauma issues are addressed and are dealt with, and they see relevance in what they're learning. That's phase 1. Because adults, if we don't see any relevance in what it is that we're learning, it's going to be compliance, and we'll probably forget it later. That's phase 1. Phase 2 is where learners start to make the ninja move of choosing to do something hard rather than to do something easy. like instead of talking to their friends, they'll go read a hard book, or instead of, surfing around on their phone, they will, choose to do a math problem. And they're practicing good habits. They're becoming resourceful. The third phase is where they're taking initiative, not just solving problems, but actually finding problems. So we use the WHOOP goal format, that the Character Lab and others promoted pretty widely a decade or so ago, where learners are identifying the wish and trying to name the outcome of what they're trying to achieve, and then identifying obstacles along the way, and then coming up with a plan specifically to overcome those obstacles. And this is where learners are, again, just taking initiative. And then lastly, and this is the goal, learners, nothing's going to stop them. They see tasks all the way through, and they persevere even when it's a struggle. And just so that we could remember it, we've got the acronym DRIP, desire, resourcefulness, initiative, and persistence. But I think the schools that we work with and that we see and that we know and love really are trying to create signature learning experiences, throughout the day for young people to get practice at doing these kinds of things so that they really learn how to learn, and they have the agency, they have the skill and the will to achieve the goals that they have for their own lives. We wrote a book called The Playbook for Self-Directed Learning. My colleagues, Dr. Caleb Collier, Brittany Tolles, and Amber Bryant, were the founders of our organization. And it's broken up by 11 different differences between teacher-led experiences and learner-led experiences. And one difference, in a teacher-led experience, traditionally in the industrial age model schoolings, teachers are the adults are the ones doing most of the choice. But in learner-led experiences like ours, learners just have a lot more choice. What you see there is a haunted house that learners at our school chose to do and designed, and it was transdisciplinary. They were using math, science, social studies, English in service of this haunted house that made them $6,000, which is pretty impressive. They chose the dance that you see there. They chose and when it was and all the things. Another difference, typically in instructor-led environments, the assessment's being done by the educators, by the teachers. Whereas in learner-led experiences, assessment is shared. Learners are doing a lot of peer assessment, a lot of self-assessment. Expert evaluation is coming in. And experts, content experts, industry experts are giving students real-world feedback on the projects that students are doing. When I was a kid in school, it was popular for people to come in and talk about their work. I think what's cool now is when an expert comes in and gives feedback to students, on their work. Another difference, in teacher-led experiences, teachers are typically the ones deciding, the pace for things, but in learner-driven experiences, learners are deciding and setting the pace. What you see pictured there is a group of folks from North Hall High School in a public school district, public high school in Georgia, and the tall guy in the back is a math teacher, decided to give his learners in his classes all the standards on week 1 of their experience, and say, okay, you can learn these any way that you want, and here's some resources, and here's the internet, and here's some friends, and here's some experts that you can talk to, and oh, by the way, you can prove mastery in any way that you want as well. Go, and I'll be around if you have questions. And a lot of the learners just went super fast, in that environment, and our book talks about that story. Teacher-led experiences, teachers lecture. And in learner-led experiences, really learners are doing a whole lot more exploring where, based in learning science, we need a degree of control over what it is that we're doing, and learners get a chance to do that. In a teacher-led experience, teachers typically are explaining things, but in learner-led experiences, teachers are showing world-class examples, and they're hosting Socratic discussions and asking questions and facilitating more peer-to-peer learning. And I can just confess, I taught in Georgia's largest public high school a number of years ago, and when I started teaching, I was anxious and afraid, if I'm totally honest with you. I was afraid that I would lose my job if the kids didn't get it. And so I was like, I did a whole lot of lecturing and explaining to make sure that they got it. And then the thing I was anxious about was, to be honest with you, like when a kid has an aha moment, it's a little bit of a hit. It's a little bit of a dopamine rush, and I sort of felt validated as a man and as a human. It's like my purpose is okay in this world. But I'm old enough now to see that, like, every time we explain or lecture, we take away the opportunity for the kids to do something that our classrooms in this country lack, which is struggle productively. And that's what they need. And I think that's what learner-led schools and learner-led systems are offering. In teacher-led experiences, teachers are at the front. In learner-led experiences, this GIF or GIF, whatever you call it, is not working right now, but typically you would see Homer Simpson disappearing into the bushes. If you know this, you've seen this before. In learner-led experiences, teachers are alongside or in the background. Typically, in the industrial age model of schooling, if kids are having an issue or they're not understanding something, the temptation, and it's coming from a beautiful place, is to lean in and like help them out. We do the opposite. Learner-centered is like, oh, let's let them figure this out, you know? And we'll make sure that they're safe and alive and respectful and all the things, but like we're gonna let them, again, struggle productively. So they're building that character, they're building that agency. Another difference is in teacher-led experiences, classrooms are quiet and controlled. In learner-led experiences, they're busy and sometimes appear chaotic. And frankly, you know, teachers need cover from administrators to be able to walk into their rooms and they're doing observations. And teachers need the blessing of those administrators to say, hey, even though it's noisy, deep learning is actually happening here. In teacher-led experiences, teachers are responsible to meet learners' needs. Whereas in learner-led experiences, teachers are not over-functioning. They're recognizing the fact that the choice to learn belongs with the learner, it belongs with the human. And so they're providing supports, inspiration, guidance, helping learners become self-aware and to self-advocate to get their own needs met. Another difference, teachers make rules for learners to follow in teacher-led experiences, but in learner-led experiences, teachers are designing learning challenges, incentives, and natural consequences for learners to explore. Learners at our school actually make the rules. And at many other learners-led, self-directed school, learners are the ones making the rules, and they're getting practice at self-governance, which is something as a nation we want to graduate young people who have practice over years at making rules worth following. And I think that's a real value of learner-centered environments. In teacher-led experiences, teachers typically are the ones setting goals. In learner-led experiences, learners get a chance to set the goals. Our school was included in this NGLC study that came out right after COVID, what made them so well prepared. It chronicled about 70 districts, and then ours was an independent school that it talked about. And I think the reason we made this study is not because we and our teachers are wizards, it's just the fact that our learners, before COVID hit, they had practice at setting their own goals every single day. And so on March 10 or March 6, 2020, when we went home, we taught the learners Zoom. They opened up Zoom and then they set their own goals and then they kept going. They were just doing what they had done, you know, every day. And then lastly, in teacher-led experiences, teachers form deep relationships with students. But in learner-led experiences, we're really appreciating, I think, social capital, the practical help that emerges from caring relationships. And teachers instead are really connecting networks to surround young people so that they have those networks. So that's the framework that I think a lot of the learner-centered movement is being built off of. A couple final examples that I would just encourage us to be, those of us who are interested in it, to be mindful of. In Indiana right now, there's, thanks to the leadership of the state school, SOUP, Dr. Katie Jenner, and then Scott Bess, one of the board members, and then a local superintendent at Eastern Hancock, George Philhauer. They're developing the nation's first, that I understand it, public collaborative of self-directed microschools across that state. And then just today, Georgia, the board voted to, like in other states, design new models, actually, for places where you know, parents are leaving and hungering for something that's more learner-centered. Thank you.
Good afternoon, my name is Lizette Valles, and I come to this work as a homeschooling parent, as an educator for 2 decades, and as a microschool founder. I extended what I was building for my own son into a microschool for others through Ellemercito Learning Community, located in Los Angeles County, and also launched the California Microschool Collective. Ellemercito is a microschool with a strong emphasis on trauma-informed and healing-centered engagement practices, serving a diverse community that includes foster youth. From the very beginning, it has been learner-centered and community-founded, shaped with and for the families we serve. Out of that work grew the California Microschool Collective, a community of practice that supports founders and families in shaping learner-centered models of their own, or in finding ones that best reflect the needs of their own children. At Ellemercito, we believe learner-centered education is delight-directed learning. It begins with a simple but profound question: what brings this child delight? Our role is to support them wholeheartedly in that pursuit. Delight isn't just a passing feeling, it's a pathway to becoming. It's about learners discovering who they are, what gifts and talents they carry, and what makes them come alive. Howard Thurman once wrote, "Don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive and go do it, because what the world needs is people who have come alive." Our learners see this quote daily on one of our walls. It's a reminder that when learners come alive, the whole community flourishes. And it connects back to something foundational: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Too often, that pursuit is pushed aside, forgotten. As Todd Rose, and I have to give a shout out to Meredith Olson, as Todd Rose, author of The Dark Horse and The End of Average, explains, we've lived under the standardization covenant, where success means being the same as everyone else, only better. The dark horse, as Rose defines it, is the person who succeeds not by following the standard formula, but by building a path around their unique strengths and passions. In The Dark Horse, Rose writes that happiness isn't fleeting pleasure, but being well suited to your purpose. For our learners, that means offering their unique gifts and talents to the world. That in and itself is a form of delight, a way of fully stepping into who they are. For our learners, delight is the pursuit of happiness. It's joy, curiosity, and possibility, not trivial, but catalytic. These moments give them meaning, purpose, and a reason to show up in community every single day. And when a child knows their life, hopes, dreams, and delights matter, that's powerful. At Ellemercito, we hold this sacred. We've all heard the phrase, one size fits none. And that is absolutely true for most areas of life, but especially education. Our backstory really began with two simple questions: why not, and what if? Why not write a love letter to education? Why not create a safe space that is trauma responsive, healing, joyful, and full of wonder? And what if we reimagined education altogether? What if students who were just enduring school could actually flourish in it? What if learners could go at their own pace? What if we truly listened to them? Those questions gave birth to Ellemercito, a place of belonging, safety, and creativity. And here's what we hold as true: every learner deserves to be known, seen, heard, understood, and ultimately loved. Can you recall a moment you felt unquestionably safe and utterly championed? That's what we want for our learners, because connection changes everything. Connection creates capacity and possibility. Connection is where the beauty is. This is our why: to move beyond the illusion of one size fits all, and instead to honor that one size truly fits none. Delight leads to growth and confidence. One learner spent nearly a year preparing for his role as John Darling in Peter Pan. The music and script seeped into his very being until he became John Darling after never having performed before. He once said, "It wasn't like having ants in his veins, but dinosaurs. Not nervous energy, but something deeper, exhilaration, aliveness, joy turned power." And no one forced him. He had fallen in love with theater. He even learned to fly, trained by a Broadway professional. This wasn't just theater, it was stamina, literacy, courage, becoming. But not every learner's delight looks like theater. For some, it's teaching a friend to solve a Rubik's Cube and entering into a speed cubing competition. For others, it's raising quail chicks, harvesting fresh basil for pesto, baking award-winning cookies, or caring for a classmate in overwhelm due to their neurodivergence. It's throwing their first birthday party because they finally feel safe. If you see me like this, it's because the three of us and all of you, we all have those stories. It's designing theme parks with Imagineers, creating them, not just observing. Every single learner carries a particular idiosyncratic delight. Our role is to hold that delight sacred and create the conditions for it to flourish. A parent once described her ideal environment for her son as structured enough to hold him together and pliable enough not to break him. That captures the heart of what we're doing. We call it choice inside structure, not freedom without support, and not structure without flexibility. It's rhythms, scaffolds, and community working together. Rhythms create safety, dedicated individualized learning plan time, 3 days of academics for us and workshops, and Thrive Thursdays and exploration and projects. Scaffolds make choice possible. Learners complete self-portrait assessments that include their love languages, multiple intelligences, learning modalities, and environments. From the time of day they focus best to the colors that calm or inspire them. All of this shapes their individualized learning plans. Our team leads the first ILP conference, but after that, learners take the lead, setting their goals, reflecting on their growth, and guiding their own learning with our support. Community brings it to life. Kidpreneurs marketplaces, student-led clubs, exhibition days, co-creating learning spaces, and partnerships rooted in healing and connection. That's why we say learners aren't just participants. They are architects of their own educational journeys. At Ellemercito, assessment isn't about testing or comparison. It's about growth and exploration of self. Learners build portfolios with projects, reflections, and evidence of how they've been stretched. Exhibition days showcase passion projects, a dance number, an art collection, a podcast, even a series of short stories. Each is unique, but all reflect courage, creativity, and the joy of sharing what they love. Of course, the 4 core subjects are present, but it's always the 4 core and more. Learners grow through mentorship, projects, and experiences that stretch their confidence and creativity. Growth shows up in extraordinary moments, conquering fear at a sky gym, as you see in this picture, studying aerodynamics through indoor skydiving, or discovering new flavors with a vegan chef. And it shows up in the everyday. When a learner joins class discussions with new confidence or embraces the power of yet. I don't know this yet. I don't understand how to solve this math problem yet, but I will get there with support. Growth isn't only academic, it's when panic attacks lessen in frequency and duration. When learners practice emotional intelligence, we're repairing trust, setting boundaries, voicing their needs. It's when they begin to know what peace feels like in their bodies, when to step forward and when to listen. Of course, we can all align to state standards. That part is easy. But standardization is not our goal. Our goal is to draw out the uniqueness of every learner, to celebrate it, and to create the conditions for it to flourish. We are student-centered, not standard-centered. We are building a model for learners and families who are far beyond standardized. At Ellemercito Learning Community, we built a proof of concept, rhythms for learning, scaffolds for agency, and a community of belonging that shows what happens when education truly is learner-centered. From there, we launched the California Microschool Collective, a home for founders, mentorship, and professional development, so no one has to do this work alone. But families and founders shouldn't have to wait for policy to catch up to their courage. That's why we're creating Founding Beyond Funding, a scalable framework for building microschools in non-ESA states. A community-rooted roadmap with tools, templates, stories, supports, and decision trees, so no one has to start from scratch. This fall, we'll launch 2 cohorts, a founder cohort to guide aspiring leaders, and a family cohort to walk alongside families as they reimagine or co-create learning models. Together, these cohorts will support 100 founders and 100 families and culminate in a national insights brief to share what works and why. Because a movement that only works in ESA states is fragile. Families deserve models that endure. And if you would like to contribute or help shape this blueprint, I would absolutely love to connect with you. One more slide. Sorry, one more slide.
All right. Okay.
Oh, sorry, just one more
Yeah,
slide.
we gotta make it quick though.
Okay, last one. Learners flourish when we create space for their curiosity and courage. That's the heart of learner-centered education. Our role is not to prescribe paths, but to guide learners and those who champion them into possibility. Because when learners are seen, supported, and trusted, they step into their own agency, they discover delight, they begin to heal, they grow into themselves with confidence and purpose. This is the work before us, holding space where learning and becoming are inseparable, where structure protects but never crushes, and where every child knows their voice and their life truly matter.
All right. Well, thank you very much. When I've seen people come across these models for the first time, one comment I'll often hear is, well, I have no doubt that this is good for some children, but surely there's just a lot of kids for whom this isn't a good fit. Do you find that there are some types of kids for whom this doesn't work so well, or is this for everybody?
I don't mind.
Because I think that this model is for everyone. This model is for everyone. This model is for anyone. That's why it is so personalized and so focused on first understanding who a learner is and then attempting to teach them something. And if I might, as a side note, I will say I think that oftentimes those arguments of this works for some, when I have heard them, they are referring to urban Black and brown communities whose children these models are not for, and have a concern with whether it's discipline or whether it's family engagement. So generally that's code for this is for a specific demographic. Oftentimes those with a level or many levels of privilege. So no, I don't think that's true.
So a follow-up question, we know that this custom approach is so important. You know, we know that we want to give kids choice. They have come with different interests, different backgrounds, different levels, different goals. And part of this requires us to reimagine the teacher or the guide or whatever you call the teacher. So this question is coming at it from a teacher's perspective. We know that teaching is a craft or guiding is a craft. It's really hard to do. It's really hard to do well. I guess a lot of people do it okay. But we all want our kids to have great teachers. And so how do you as founders approach supporting, training, guiding teachers, especially when these types of teachers that you're describing are different in your lectures, your traditional teacher model?
You wrote the book on that one, buddy.
You really did. You really did.
Well, we did write a book on that actually, but we just published a paper on the knowledge, craft, and skills required to be a guide in for basically an educator in the age of AI. And our organization, COIS, and a few others are working on a views paper where we take a stab at that and then kind of respond to one another's different perspectives and takes. But what I think more broadly, what we see is there is a movement to, because content is so available and less of an issue now, for an educator to be a guide, to be a facilitator, to be a coach, to be a game maker, to be a mentor, to be a networker. And most GSEs, graduate schools of education, are not designed to train that per se. And so to call those out. And so maybe in March or April, circle back with Education Reimagined and our institute and 4 other organizations who are collaboratively sharing our stance on what it takes to be an educator as a guide.
Excellent. Why don't we open it up for Q&A right here in the front row?
Hi, I'm Laura. I'm Laura, and this is a piggyback to Daniel's question earlier. You did say that this is for everyone, and by everyone you mean pediatrics, because I am a teacher of nursing, and we are trying to use the flipped classroom modality, which is like the learner-centered model, wherein we tell our students to study first, and we discuss topics when we come back next week. And you discuss this amongst yourselves, and we then, if you have questions, you ask me while I moderate or facilitate your learning. And I have 2-part questions. What are the age group? When you said that this is for everyone, what age groups would this would the learners be? And how can learner-centered modalities balance rigor, such as in our, like in nursing, the NCLEX question, or the exams, right? With flexibility and innovation. So the age group was the first one, and then the how can learner-centered modality balance rigor, do we have rigor here, and with flexibility and innovation?
I'll go ahead and answer that. So first of all, I need to start off with the word rigor. I know it's a wonderful word, and also I don't necessarily love it. And I think about rigor mortis. I think about, but nursing. Anyway, I think that, as I said, there can be delight in the learning. So in all of these different modalities, and I want to ask a clarifying question to your question. The content is rigorous, and yet can there be joy in that process? Is that kind of where you were headed? Like, well, there was a two-part, the age groups, but I want to answer the second part first.
Okay, yes, the rigor, yes, it's really, nursing is tough, but we want it to be fun, tough. Like if I don't know how that would
That's
be.
perfect. I love it.
Yeah, so when we flip the classroom, they come in and, okay, they discuss things, and if they have questions, they ask us, the professors. And so how can we, because most of them, I have to be honest with you, most of them would say, Professor, we're teaching ourselves. So what's the point of why are you here? I mean, no, they don't say that in those words. I'm just making that up. But it's like they're saying that they're teaching themselves, and because it's a flipped classroom, they have to learn it first, and they ask us if they have problems. And
Why don't we shoot it back to the panelists, and maybe you could respond to that.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. And I was going to say, I would say it's for all age groups, TK to 12th grade. And really quickly, there's so many different ways of learning and how to, share content. And I think exploring some of those different modalities, like we at our micro school, we're really into game schooling. So teaching our students, or even as they're trying to delve into geography, they might be playing like a geography game, or to memorize or delve into grammar. It's a total physical response that's happening. They'll get up and then they'll go ahead and use all of the parts of speech, but they become the part of speech. So there's so many different ways where you can make it fun. Yeah.
Okay, other questions? Yeah, right in the back.
Thank you. I'm from Utah as well as one of the other questioners, the legislator from there, and I also teach at homeschooling conferences, and so I work with people in education a lot. And when I started homeschooling my children, I did something called the Thomas Jefferson education, as well as lots of Charlotte Mason things. And this reminds me so much of that type of approach. But I have noticed that there are some people who struggle with this type of approach in a homeschool setting as well as in other settings because they don't allow for the struggle. So I really appreciated Mr. Thigpen, I guess, talking about the struggle, and I'm wondering maybe and that might even go to this question over here too, is she was saying, well, some of them have a hard time and say, you're not teaching us anything. Well, they're not used to struggling. That's the problem. Anyway, but I'm just wondering about that struggle and what we see the trickle-down effect happening into the homes as they get the opportunity to struggle. I also have noticed that there's a short-lived life of educational models that don't bring in that struggle that needs to happen, and that don't have enough of this is actually what education means. We're going to go through all these phases of education so that they actually know ahead of time, because otherwise the learner is just drifting sometimes. So if you could speak to that.
A lot of the work that we end up doing actually is with parents and caregivers on this front. A lot of folks who have of the age of having children at this moment in our nation, Jonathan Haidt wrote "Anxious Generation." There's some anxious parents and caregivers, and a lot of the work that we do is working with caring adults who love their children and thinking through what an anxious mindset and an anxious response might be when their child struggles, because it's just normal. And then what that response potentially leads to for the long term. And some of us are shaking their heads like we've been there. I have been there. And then couple that with a healthy mindset, or a healthier, or a more growth-oriented mindset that I think Coy and Lizette are so greatly embodying up here. And then what that leads to, and then empowering these caring adults, with that choice. And I think provides a home and a school and a community where the productive struggle is like, when I'm very influenced by Bronfenbrenner's theory of, if the community and the school and the neighborhood and the social institution and the parents, for the most part, align in their expectations of what's expected of a young person, the young person's development is going to accelerate. But if there's misalignment there, it's going to be stunted. And so just getting everybody on the same page about what young people are capable of, because they're human and they have incredible potential.
I think we had a question right here.
Thanks. Hi, my name is Dee Thompson. I'm a high school math teacher turned education lobbyist in Texas. I'm going to ask my question up front to make sure we get to the question part and then give you the context. I want to know, from your perspective, what are the biggest headaches or unnecessary barriers in offering or operating these models that you wish policymakers better understood? That context is, as many of you probably know, we want to attract these kinds of models to Texas. We're specifically in the public policy environment. I'm especially interested in how to make sure our new ESA program supports not just family demand, but also the supply side that you guys are running, right? And I think a lot of times policymakers are so focused on the family side, rightfully so, that they forget about how these decisions in policymaking affect the supply side that you guys are on. So how can states like Texas, both in rulemaking happening now and through future legislative refinements, create a policy environment that really enables these schools to thrive?
I think that I appreciate that question, and I appreciate what you are doing around that. I've partnered with the Beacon Center back in Tennessee for that exact reason, to talk about how do we enable this. That's much of the work of Education Reimagined's ecosystem lab, is what needs to be true to stand these models up and for them to serve the community. And I think one of the really important issues, but although I think this is true for public and charter, or public and public charter as well, and that is when we look at educators who, in that process of licensing, who can teach, who is allowed to teach, how long they can teach. So that, and that sort of hard line around licensing, I think is a huge barrier, and one that I would not to see abandoned, but certainly explored. How creative can we get in how we're approaching this, particularly for urban communities that are full of experts that can be leveraged, and to a larger societal issue, I think really tapping into that talent that is available is a fantastic way to teach our young people that our communities are not something to be feared, but actually something to be cultivated and full of major assets. So I definitely think licensing is yes, that is absolutely one of them. And I would say the other would be around what we're requiring in terms of letter grades. We're competency-based, so in the absence of letter grades, there's often an assumption that, there's not evidence to back it up. So, and that's probably just comes down to education and understanding. Oh no. Well, yes, but specifically the competency-based versus letter grading. And I think that really just comes down to knowledge, just education of people around other ways of assessing and giving credit for what's been done.
For me, I would just add briefly, I think, and Lizette said it to me in her speech when she emphasized growth, but when you measure academic growth, there's three different ways. There's longitudinal growth, there's comparative growth, and then growth in absolute terms. And right now we have systems across our nation that, emphasize all three, but what if the system instead emphasized longitudinal growth. And we just looked at, and we held our organizations accountable for growing kids where they come to us, where they're at, and appreciating the uniqueness that they are.
Okay, Lizette, yes.
One quick thing, I would say physical infrastructure. I think about the shared learning model in Salinas, and it is Kainos that is doing that, led by Jackie Scott and Vanessa Gilbride. And they really have leveraged the power of this shared learning model where businesses are able to provide maybe at a discounted price or, you know, in a way that is a lot more founder friendly for these micro schools to go ahead and start up. And so really tapping in and maximizing the space. I think that's one of the barriers on something that's needed.
All right, let's thank our panel for a great session. All right, the next one starts at 3:45.